Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Frederick Kozak. I'm the president and CEO of Auxico Resources, a Canadian publicly listed company in international production of minerals and clean technology. So let me just preface my comments by saying that while I'm showing you a map of projects around the world, Colombia, South America, DRC in Africa, it's important to think of Auxico as not as a mineral exploration company, but as a company who's going to be producing minerals for a clean technology future. These are critical minerals that are used in, not in batteries, but are used in electric motors, everything that's very important to where the world is going now into a clean technology space. Now, I've recently joined the company, and one of the reasons I've joined the company is to be part of this solution of a clean technology world. And that is to say that first and foremost, when you talk about what do we need for electric vehicles and that sort of thing, you need rare earth elements. Auxico is one of the very few companies today in the world that can sell you monazite. I can sell you monazite from the DRC, and within the next, hopefully 18 months or so, I can also sell you monazite from Colombia and Brazil. So how much would you like, and what country would you like it from? Now, Auxico is the sales agent for a private sister company called Central American Nickel. We are selling the monazite out of the DRC. Thus far, have sold about 720 tons this year, but Central American Nickel is looking to grow that production out of the DRC. And what is interesting, though, is for Auxico, it could amount to somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million per month of cash flow. Now, I'm going to focus specifically on Colombia and Brazil, and we have some very interesting projects there. But we are looking to a lot more rare earths and other critical materials. So let's talk a little bit about what are we looking at. In Colombia, Brazil, and the DRC. So as I mentioned, monazite sands in the DRC, Auxico also has access to some tantalum there, but that is not in operations as yet. But in Colombia, there's two projects. Colombia has an alluvial deposit in the Monastic Project, which is both some PGMs in one alluvial layer, then underneath some critical materials, including the rare earths. And then in Brazil, a tin tailings project. Now, what is interesting about the Colombian project is in the Monastic area, there is also an opportunity to sell tin. So similar to what the company is doing out of the DRC, excuse me, Auxico has entered into a joint venture arrangement with a Colombian company and is about to start exporting tin from Colombia. And it's very exciting because it too, like the cash flow that's coming out of the DRC and the sales agent opportunity, Auxico will be able to generate something along the order of potentially $500,000 to $1 million per month, looking at selling up to 100 tons of tin out of Colombia per month. So it gets more and more exciting because this will show you in terms of the rare earths. As I mentioned, we've got rare earths that we're looking at, the Masangana project in Brazil. There's rare earths in the Congo, in Colombia. There's also rare earths in Bolivia, but we're not focused on that at this moment. But I want to draw your attention to the column on the far right. And the column on the far right is very important because it shows something called ultrasound assisted extraction technology. Auxico has the exclusive arrangement to utilize this patented technology. It comes from our sister company. And what it does is it is a ultrasonic technology to speed the recovery of the rare earths from standard separation technique. So it allows Auxico, should we decide to use it, and we're looking at that, to improve and support a more economic and a cleaner method of separating the rare earth elements and others. All right, going back to Colombia, we're going to talk about two projects here. Very excited because we've got these high value metals, and we've also got rare earth elements in Colombia. Now, the one project, which is called Monastic, which is our extraction project, Auxico has been granted a mining permit by the National Mining Agency of Colombia, and so we're ready to go with that. We're just waiting on an environmental assessment and permit to come from the Colombian government. We've been expecting that. We anticipate that that could be coming in the very near future. They have a very good process to evaluate the environmental aspects of extraction in the country. And so they're going through their process, and we anticipate getting it in the very near future. And once we get that initial assessment, then we can start the extraction process in Colombia, getting equipment, that sort of thing. So on the Monastic Project, we do have an NI 43-101 technical report. Now that is not a resource report, but it is a technical report on the property. We've gone in, we've done sampling, we've done several hundred samples across the project. Those samples are in the assay lab, and assay labs right now, of course, are all extremely busy. We anticipate could be another couple of months or so as we move through the assay results. But looking to once we receive the assay results, we anticipate then preparing a 43-101 resource report for the Monastic Project. And that's very exciting because that will support what we're looking at in terms of an extraction process and design for Colombia. Now, within the Monastic Project, we've got, it's sort of like a layer cake. There's two layers. There's a first layer on the near surface, which has, as you can see here, some gold, some platinum, PGMs, that sort of thing, some very interesting critical materials. And then underlying that is the other alluvial layer that contains the monazite and other critical materials. This project is located right on the Orinoco River in eastern Colombia, in the Vachada region. And the Orinoco River is unique in that it floods and recedes every year. And that brings us to the next topic, which is that Auxico is now, as I mentioned at the outset, Auxico has entered into a tin trading joint venture agreement with a Colombian company. This is very exciting because it's not something that we had actually considered out of the Monastic or this part of Colombia. But working with our partner Gracor, we've learned that there is a massive opportunity here to export high-grade tin from this region. What is interesting when I say that the Orinoco River ebbs and flows, it has basically naturally pre-concentrated tin on the ground. So Gracor has been buying tin concentrate from the indigenous peoples of the region, and we've entered into a joint venture agreement which will allow Gracor and ourselves to increase the export of tin out of this part of the area. And it's very exciting because it generates, as I mentioned, another source of cash flow from the company. Our first shipment of tin, estimated at approximately 20 tons, is just in the final process of being prepared, and hopefully we'll get that shipped out of the country before the end of the year. The Christmas season obviously slows a lot of things down, so we're just getting the processes in place. But over a period of time, it's our intention to ramp the tin sales out of Colombia up to around 100 tons per month. and we share the profit on those sales of 70% with Gracor at 30%. So it's a very exciting opportunity for us to again generate more cash flow for the company before we actually get the Monastic project up and operating. So there's two elements to the Colombian story. One is we'll get into Monastic, we'll start extracting rare earths and that sort of thing with our environmental permit and putting equipment on site and then starting the processing. But right away, starting early in the new year, look for cash flow from tin sales. So think, as I said in my opening remarks, think of Auxico as a processor and seller of critical materials for a clean technology world. And that's exactly what this amounts to. All right, something else that's very exciting and is very straightforward for a company such as Auxico is we are in the tin tailings business in Rondônia. Rondônia is a state in northwest Brazil, and where we're located, the region has seen native tin mining from hard rock that's been in process for several decades, 6 or 7 decades, and it's still done in the region. It's a very large tin production area for the country of Brazil. Now, interestingly enough, over the decades of tin tailings, over the tin mining rather, they needed a place to dump the tailings. So the tailings have been deposited over the decades in a valley in northwest Brazil. And when you think of the volume of tin, think of it this way, or the tailings rather, think of it this way. It's a valley that's 10 to 15 kilometers long, 2 to 4 kilometers wide in places, and with tin tailings as much as 2 to 10 meters thick. Now, within the area where we have a joint venture with a local cooperative, an 85-15 split, the German and Brazilian geologic societies have done a separate standalone report. It's posted on the Auxico Resources website, estimating 30 million tons of tailings on this area of approximately 200 square kilometers. Now, what is very interesting is we've seen tin concentrations of anywhere from a half to more than 3%, but within the tailings themselves, there is columbite, tantalite, and monazite and ilmenite. So they're all of the critical materials, again, that are important. We're looking at multiple streams of income from this area. Now, as far as the production and processing of this goes, Auxico is about to start a geologic sampling program over an area that should identify approximately 3 to 4 million tons to start. It would take us more than a year to evaluate that full 30 million tons. And we don't need to evaluate that. We just need 3 or 4 million tons that we can evaluate to get going, because we are planning to build a processing plant to process approximately 2,500 tons per day of tin tailings, which will give you an estimated, well, you can see the numbers here on the screen, different tonnage of the different minerals over a year. We have signed already an offtake agreement for tin for approximately 3,600 tons per year. And that's not the full, it's not what we expect to be the full production of tin from the area, but it's certainly a good chunk. That is a bankable offtake agreement. And we're considering, as we move forward, what does the development of this project look like? So again, starting a sampling program very soon, which will generate a number of samples, which will go into the assay labs, looking at, it could be a couple of months or so for those assays to be available, but then creating an NI 43-101 compliant resource report. This slide here shows an estimated capital expenditure of approximately 28 million. When we were in the field in September, we did we did some work on the processing and looking at how that as the flow is actually going to go out of the field. And we have revised our cost estimate. We're just reviewing those numbers now, but it is significantly less than this capital expenditure estimate that we've shown on the screen here, $28 million. And similarly, revenues will be somewhat different, but to be fully evaluated with a 43101 compliant report. Now, the tin tailings, as we know, are very valuable, and the tin by itself would definitely pay for the project, but we've got columbite, tantalite, and again, going back to some of my opening remarks, we've got rare earths monazite coming out of the DRC. We will also have the ability to produce rare earths monazite coming out of Colombia. And lastly, we've got rare earths monazite here in Brazil. So again, think of Auxico as supplying critical materials to a clean technology world. And that is what we're looking at doing from not one, but 3 different countries. This is in the presentation that's on our website. It also comes straight out of the German report, also located on our website. It just shows some composition of the different elements. I would highlight that, yes, it's very important for the rare earths in that we're showing neodymium and praseodymium, which are the most critical elements that are created in the, are used rather in the creation of very strong permanent rare earth magnets. So again, just a slide here that shows what do we have in terms of the DRC and the monazite sands. Auxico is a sales agent for the sister company, has been selling the rare earth monazite. To date, just started this year, 720 tons of monazite have been shipped. There's another couple hundred tons that are just about ready to go. And the sister company is looking at growing the production of the monazite exported out of the DRC, which is great for Auxico because it provides an opportunity for the company to improve cash flow. We've got an agreement in the DRC for an offtake of tantalum. That is pending and in terms of an export permit out of the country, and stay tuned for news on that. This is our capital structure. Our share price is in the sort of mid to high 40-cent Canadian range. We're also listed on the US OTC, and of course in Germany. Market cap of approximately, well, at 45 cents, you can see 50 cents, $35 million. Warrants and options and convertible debenture. In terms of companies, you should think of the management team. And of course, this shows some of our management, myself, Mark Billings, who is the executive chairman, Tara Asfor, who is our director of investor relations. But let's focus on our board of directors, because this is where the brain power is that supports what we're doing. So Pierre Gauthier was the founder. He's a director, chairman emeritus. He formerly held the position of CEO and chairman of Auxico. He's also leading the charge at the Central American Nickel as a private company. Richard Boudreau is an incredible technology focused director. He has a number of patents in the rare earth processing space. Melissa Sanderson, a recent addition to our board. She is such a great addition because she is a globally recognized expert in the field of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Joseph Lau brings up our financial acumen out of the Far East. Byron King is also a recent addition to the board, and he is a geologist, but a well-known international expert in the mining space. And then Buzz West, one of our directors out of the UK. We have technology advisors, and then I'll just leave it here. So with that, I know I kind of blazed through that, Julian, but I'm happy to answer any questions that may have already come up or that you would like to ask me. Let's turn the floor over to you and let's get a discussion going here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Frederick. I think that was a good overview of what you guys are doing. So I invite everyone that has question right now in the Q&A box or in the chat box, please send it right away. We'll be able to engage on these points with Frederick. Now, one question on on my side, maybe just for clarification, what is your cash flow currently? How much? What is happening in and out and profits and so on? I'm not sure I did get a good overview of your financial position and revenues and expenses.
Sure. Great question. So currently we are actually sitting on approximately $3 million of cash, and we have been generating modest cash flow from the sale of the monazite out of the DRC as the sales agent. So and it's been lumpy, to be blunt. It's not a regular flow of cash flow, but assuming that Central American Nickel is able to ramp that up over the next few months, then as I mentioned in my presentation, depending on the volume of monazite available out of the DRC, we're looking for that to generate potentially between $500,000 and $1 million per month just from the DRC. Let's again talk about the tin trading business out of Colombia. Approximately 100 tons per month, depending on the price of tin, which is always the big question. It's recovered a little bit. It's moving up and down, but we also anticipate from Colombia an additional $500,000 to $1 million per month. So here you have two separate projects, two separate continents that combined could generate or could create cash flow for Auxico in the order of $1 to $2 million per month of cash flow. And that is almost, I won't say it's pure profit. There's obviously a few expenses, but it is highly levered to almost straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. As on those, you would not have the expenses of a normal miner, obviously, with an underground or an open pit operation. So Garth has a question for us. He's telling us the price of tin is rising very rapidly right now, sitting at almost 25,000 a ton. Once your tin trading operation gets started, how long do you think it will take to get those operations scaled up to your goal of 100 tons a month?
Well, that is in process as we speak. As I mentioned, we've assembled we're just completing the assembly of 20 tons of tin now. That's almost completed. And that will be shipped to Bogota and taken care of for export. So what we're doing is we're helping the region in terms of purchasing more and more tin concentrated from the indigenous peoples. So it will take a bit of time to do that, but it is certainly feasible and possible to have this up to 100 tons per month in very, very short order. I'm not going to put a timeline on it because, you know, we're in the process of getting that done. We're now into the Christmas season in Colombia, but it is our objective to get to 100 tons per month as quickly as possible. And this is with our partner, Gracor. It is also possible because, as I mentioned, we didn't really consider tin as a surface mineral that we could literally go out and collect. There are other lands in the region along the Orinoco River where there is potentially more tin. So I'm not going to promise anything, but it is certainly possible that Auxico could exceed that 100 tons per month through 2023.
Well, this is very interesting. I was personally at the International Tin Mining Conference that was last week in London, and basically tin you sell as much as you find. There is right now a very low inventories. I see this is one of the reasons we start seeing really the price coming up again, really related on the LME warehouse. And I think this is a very, very exciting projects you have there. And I think that German investors can really relate, as over 500,000 tons is used within Germany just by itself, and it's basically part of every soldering. So everything that you go from a microphone, your laptop, a windmill, automobile, it's an absolutely everything. So we use it on a daily basis with at very, very low amount. Michael John is asking us, what is radioactivity of the
I'm sorry, Julian, your screen has
could be related to them?
frozen. Sorry, could you repeat your screen froze, or you froze in mid-question?
Okay. Yeah, what is the radioactivity of the tin tailings and water content?
Well, I have a slide on that from the German DIRA report. Look at the columns labeled TH and U, and this will give you an example of what the regional sampling program found for radioactivity. We, as I mentioned, we are about to start our own sampling program on a rigorous basis to get to a resource calculation for our 43101 report. But there is radioactivity, and typically, I should add, this is an interesting comment I didn't make before. Typically, all monazite contains radioactivity. The one advantage to the monazite that comes out of the DRC is very low to no radioactivity. And that is very interesting because it makes it much easier for people to process without having to have a license to handle radioactive material. Also, for shipping, makes it much, much simpler.
Absolutely. And we still have about a minute left. I have a question from Philip. It's a very long question, so I'll divide it and see what we can cover.
Okay.
He's saying, so you're getting 500K to $1 million from DRC in cash flow, and you expect 500 to 1 million from Colombia before any rare earth project, and potentially 200 million of annual EBITDA from Brazil. When does the 1 to 2 million in cash flow starts from DRC and Colombia?
Well, sometime in 2023, the DRC is related to the pace at which the extraction of the monazite from the DRC happens. And similarly in Colombia, it depends on the pace of growing the tin production up to approximately 100 tons per month or more. But
and what would be your capex to start those operations?
The capex is basically zero. We provided a little bit of working capital to our partner in terms of being able to speed the process up, but our capex is virtually nil.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Well, we're out of time, Frédéric. Thank you very much for closing this 5th International Investment Forum. I thank you very much for participating, and we look forward to continue following your story.
Thank you very much for allowing me to tell our Auxico story.
Thank you. Bye-bye.